Welcome back. We heard in part one from Morag Livingston about historic allegations of the destruction of trade unions by the collusion of government, the police and the media, and that was before the current Western economic crisis triggered by the 2008 crash. Joining me now is Guy Shannon, the chair of the British Association of Social Workers, the largest professional association for social work in the UK. On the 6th of March, he'll be joining others fighting austerity cuts at a meeting in London to galvanise support for what some argue is collective economic punishment. Thanks so much, Guy, for coming on. What about this meeting on the 6th of March? What are you hoping to achieve?
Well, the meeting on the 6th of March is actually part of a campaign that sprung into life in the past year or so. That's been organised and started by the British Association of Social Workers together with the Social Workers Union in alliance with a whole range of other organisations.
Just explain that, though. There's a union and there's a professional association. Professional associations historically have been much less keen to get involved in politics, sometimes even affiliated with Conservative governments.
That might be the case. The British Association of Social Workers created a trade union arm several years ago, which is now an independent trade union associated with the professional association, and we work very closely together. In fact, the Social Workers Union is, I believe, the fastest growing union in the country at the moment.
What have the austerity cuts meant for your members, then?
Well, what the cuts have meant for our members is we can't do the job that we want to do properly, really. And that has a terrible impact on the people that we are here to serve. I think it's well documented, well known that austerity affects people in poverty, affects the poorest people in society more than other groups. And social workers, by and large, the majority of our service users are people who are suffering from poverty. So austerity is actually affecting the work of social workers every day in a whole range of ways.
Let's drill down to one specific problem, as your members may perceive it. I mean, I understand there's been the closure of more than 500 children centres. How does that have a knock-on effect on the work of your members?
It has an absolutely enormous effect, and that's part of a wider picture of cuts in family support services. I mean, that's a huge loss to lose 500 children's centres since 2010. And social workers need to have available support services such as children's centres to work alongside, to refer parents onto, and to be part of the care and support that social workers coordinate and offer.
So, going too far, though, to say that provision in Britain for young families has collapsed, as some have said?
I think it is collapsing. It is collapsing in many areas.
And I understand that your members also have had to take the slack after the government introduced disability testing. What is the overwhelming view of your members about work capability assessments, which have been very controversial, of course?
Well, I don't know about a poll of our members, but there's widespread dismay about the use of the work capabilities assessment. I mean, many people would want it at least reformed or even scrapped.
I suppose you're going to say that your members are also reporting an uptick in the number of mental health cases that they have to deal with. The government says it's doing more for mental health problems in this country than any other previous government.
I'm not sure what the government is saying about it, but we know that mental health services are stretched to the limit. I mean, one important part of the campaign that we've launched is to give a voice to service users and to collect stories, real-life stories of the impact of austerity. And if I may, if I could just have an article here which has got a collection of stories in it, and I want to read out the words of Jean, who's a survivor of mental health difficulties, who said, "Recent cuts under austerity measures mean that after decades of crucial secondary mental health services support, I have now been discharged. I had at least initially some online guided support via something called the Big White Wall, but even this has now been withdrawn after I reached my free 6 months usage limit. The harsh reality as I enter old age is that I have no support to keep me well now, except for the Samaritans." It seems to me in 21st century Britain, with the wealth that we have as a country, that situation shouldn't be allowed to be the case.
What are your members seeing when, say, sanctions are brought in at welfare offices in this country? Do they see people coming to them? I mean, before, hopefully, they have to see NGOs like the Samaritans.
They do, yes, they do, and they have to send people off to food banks. So we had experience of this when we were... The campaign that the meeting on the 6th of March is part of was really kicked off by a 100-mile protest walk we did last year from Birmingham to Liverpool.
You walked the 100 miles?
We walked the 100 miles, yes I did, yeah, with many other social workers and supporters. And we met the coordinator of the food bank in Runcorn, who told us about the queues that they have at their food banks. We met a number of people that ran food banks as it happened. And so what our members see and hear about is parents that they're working with having to spend some of their time desperate for food, queuing for food banks.
You see, the government again and again say, obviously, they're trying their best, but say on the carrot and stick approach to welfare sanctions. The government say the sanctions are only used when someone failed to meet requirements without good reason. This is in a minority of cases. People are given every opportunity to explain why they failed to do so before a decision is made. And there have been some celebrations of the increased food bank use as a show of the big society, David Cameron's old phrase. I
think anyone that's actually had experience of food banks and anyone that's watched the film I, Daniel Blake, for example, which was a graphic depiction of what using food banks is like, couldn't possibly say that. I think that's a comment by someone that's removed from the actual reality of such charitable provision. I mean, to be reduced in the 21st century for people to not starve, for children to not starve, to have to be reliant on charity, which is simply in the gift of people. It might be given, it might not be, as opposed to benefits or provision that people receive as a right. That seems to me a terrible state of affairs.
And I should add, you said the affiliated union may be getting more subscriptions than any other. How can a union and an association like yours help to be the sort of vanguard of this movement against austerity?
Well, it can help in several ways. I mean, it can launch the campaign that we're talking about here in this interview. It's crucial to act collectively. Social workers can't act simply on their own.
You're not frightened of being demonized by the press?
No, I suspect we should be supported by the press for taking such action, for speaking up on behalf of service users, people the poorest in society, to say that people should be treated more fairly, that there should be social justice. I can't imagine that any right-thinking newspaper would think differently than that.
Guy Shannon, thank you.